ladies and gentlemen, wafflers. We're just gonna have a conversation with our friend Jan. Jan, who wrote a book. And he's gonna read us a little bit from his book. And then we're going to ask him some questions. I'll ask him some questions. You can ask him some questions. We'll give him a hard time. And yeah.
Thanks very much.
Turn it up a bit.
Hello everyone. Thanks for taking time out for you, Leo, to listen to me. I'm really happy to be here. My friend Roman invited me up here. I'm on the middle of a mini kind of booklet tour. I've been to Sheffield, Manchester, Nottingham, Glasgow, and now landed back in my university town. I was at university in Hull in 1985 to 88. So I used to live on De Grey Street. I went back to see my old house. Fortunately, it still got the front door. When I was in it, it didn't have a front door. It was just used to swing open like, so it was a different sort of vibe then. Okay, so I've written this pamphlet. It's called All Hands on Deck. All the money's going to political prisoners and long-term prisoners coming out of prison. It deals with the climate crisis, the cost of living crisis, and I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself. I grew up in Essex, on council estates in Essex. My mum brought us both up, me and my sister. And now I'm working on council estates in Brighton, planting community orchards. We've got 200 community orchards around Sussex, all on council estates. We look after the trees for 3 years, and then the community take over, and they get the harvest. They get the share of the harvest days. We do all sorts of apples, all Sussex varieties, pears, cherries, medlars, quince, every sort of fruit. So that's a bit about me. I've been an activist since I was about 18. So I've been up trees, I've sort of saved ancient woodland in Worthing. I was part of the HS2 campaign to stop the ancient woodland being destroyed in Denham Woods, which was Boris Johnson wanted to build this HS2 project as a kind of glory for him. And as I think we realise, it's only going to benefit the business class because no one else can afford to travel from London up to Manchester. And the northern part of HS2 has also been stopped, so you know where the money is. I'm going to read a few bits then, because I'm aware I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I'm going to start, the book's split into 4 pieces. The introduction, collision course, resistance. I did serve some prison time for my climate activism, which I'll deal with in one of the readings. So if I start here, okay, so like many activists in the mainstream, I value freedom, mutualism, wildness, and the countryside. While the prevailing capitalist governments desecrate our wild lands and seas, ruin our human and animal ecologies, and they're taking us into this world of social license, where if you haven't got a smartphone, if you haven't got the wherewithal, basically you're a persona non grata. You don't exist. The existential threat of climate is obviously real. When you're relying on food supplies from countries where they can't produce food because the heat is too much, obviously the weather patterns are continuing to spiral out of control. We've seen this Category 5 storm in Jamaica. It's Melissa, I think it was called, but we're going to see more of these Category 5 storms. It's not great. And the populist brand of neoliberalism and the fascism we're seeing on our streets has led to total chaos. I was in Sheffield the other night, and some of my friends in Sheffield had been run over by a group of men who thought it was funny to run over a group of people trying to protect their community. So it's not ideal, but we can make a better world. And I think how you beat this insidious form of populism, it's through being places like this pro-social, well organised, strategically sound, and offering people a different life to lead. I shall read a passage from section 2, which again is quite brief. So this is entitled Unity in a Time of Crisis. In making the case for cooperation between the left and the right, unlikely alliances form. If people are maybe old enough here to remember their parents in the Blitz or what have you, well, if you look at the Blitz when it happened, people didn't just give up and stick their heads in the sand. They kind of dug deep. They consistently worked towards a better life of reconstruction, forward thinking, and a planned, carefully structured way out of demob power. Such alliances could also form today. The common enemy is the technocratic class. The ruling class, the international professional bureaucrats who lie, steal and cheat. They say it's all okay, we'll reduce carbon emissions by such and such a date using this or that fix. Utter hogwash, okay? I've looked at the science and I can tell you what they're saying is just not true. The juggernaut of what's happening ecologically is already hitting farmers in the Mekong Delta. So the Mekong Delta is the breadbasket for Southeast Asia. It's where all the rice is produced. Once the sea levels are rising, all that floodplains are being covered in seawater and they can't produce rice. So Caribbean islanders facing ferocious storms, indigenous tribes in South America, Alaskan and Siberian communities, their houses are falling into the permafrost because the permafrosts are melting. So the crux is we have to do something really radical, and that's why I'm kind of quite keen on the Greens at the moment and your party, and it's quite exciting that there's a counterpoint to reform, there's a counterpoint to Farage now. It's not just Farage who's singing the song, we've got people like Zach Polanski. Okay, he's a bit, he's a bit la-di-da in some ways, but he's come out and said let's abolish landlords. Let's give people free transport, public transport. I was a member of Just Stop Oil, and I served time in 3 British jails for an action I did stopping the traffic on the M25 in London, November the 7th, 2022. I went to HMP Belmarsh, I went to HMP Wandsworth, and I went to HMP Hideout. And every prisoner I met in prison said the same thing to me. They said, they stopped laughing. They said, you're in here because you what? You did that? What? They put you in here? So, prisoners do not like authority, so you're on a kind of, you're not going to encounter much antagonism, although obviously in prison you do encounter antagonism. But the point being, in prison there's a lot of mutual aid. I was helped out. I'd never been in prison before in my life. Growing up in Essex on council estates, half the dads of my mates had been to prison, so I knew what it was about. However, nothing prepares you for that first experience. But I will say, to a man, I didn't encounter any violence. I mean, I saw a lot of violence, but I didn't encounter any violence. And I found the majority of prisoners I was in with to be quite helpful and not, obviously, I wasn't hanging around with serious violent criminals. I was a non-violent political prisoner. I'm going to end with a final passage, which is here. So by prioritising cooperation instead of competition, by focusing on social gain, not social control, we can resist what is happening now. In a way, resistance is naivety, and it at its best, and cynicism is what we no longer need. We need to realise that what's happening to society is the result of people failing to give up their kind of fat cat lifestyles. The classes that are running these companies, BP, Shell, they've got grandchildren, they've got children, but they're still carrying on with business as usual. And as ordinary working people, I believe that the time is right now to say we're not going to take it anymore, and hence, we might vote for your party, we might do what we want, but essentially just being active in your community and doing great things like here at Waffle, which is an amazing project. That's the way forward, in my opinion. Thank you.
So, just maybe a general question, because you made the effort to write a book. So there's something, maybe some thoughts you had, or some things that you saw that you felt were not out there in the conversation. Why did you write a book? What is it that you feel is missing in the way people are doing things?
Okay, the reason I wrote the booklet is simply because I wanted to join people. Having been in activism for over 30 years, I wanted to join different parts of the tribe, if you like, together. So the whole purpose of the booklet was to persuade people to join together and be more effective. Because together we can be more effective. So that was the main reason for doing it, to be honest.
So what parts of activism do you think are disjointed, that are not engaging with each other?
Yeah, I think in terms of, if you look at Extinction Rebellion and more kind of radical groups possibly, I think there's a tendency for people, once they're in a group, like when I was in Just Stop Oil, when Just Stop Oil finished, it'll move on to something else, there'll be something different, but obviously you get attached to a group, but you try not to get so attached that you miss the big picture. And the big picture is, if we all join together and do more of initiatives like this, we're going to have a better world, in my opinion. So people are attached to their groups, and when you say the bigger picture, I think what I'm getting at is that we've seen it in the Labour Party, haven't we, in years gone by, between, like for example, Derek Hatton and the militant tendency and different forms of Labour Party politics. So on the left, traditionally, you do tend to find groups split up. They go there, they go right. We saw Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana with your party, there was this big kerfuffle at the beginning. And it's something that we can avoid, and if we realise that the main things that we need things like free public transport, we need circular economics, we need to tax the rich heavy, we need to stop private jets, we need to stop Taylor Swift coming to Heathrow in a private jet. So 2 activists who go and spray paint her plane get prison, but she's earning $2 billion a year. We need to stop that. Footballers earning, or however much footballers earn. Why? We need to stop this and just think, why? What are we doing? And people are starting to do that. The Green Party, etc., etc. They're starting to ask these questions, which are uncomfortable for the people in power because they're happy with their snouts in the trough. Let's not forget, all politicians are quite happy to cream off the profits, take their stipend from BP as a consultant after their political career, end up not having any scruples for what they do, and basically trample all over us, because we're the people who are left picking up the pieces. Okay.
So I understand the why questions and the what questions, but for me the big question is the how question, because you can have tons of people saying tax the rich and free public transport, but how do you get from here to there?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That is a very good question. You put me on the spot there. I think essentially the how question is it's about organisation. It's about good, solid social structures. So I went to a few festivals over the summer. Now the people I spoke at the festivals were sort of saying to me, I've got a community garden going on in Lewisham, and then another bloke would say, I've got a community garden going on in Doncaster. Now, once we start networking, you see in the bigger political picture, your party, the Greens, maybe the Liberal Dems, whoever, people are starting to think, well, we need to come together. On a local level, it's projects like this that are so vital, because people come together and they support each other. Okay? And that's what we need, a supportive, circular economy. We need free public transport, we need insulation in everyone's homes, we need no more subsidies for the oil industry, no more fat cat salaries, and we need a fairer society. And the way to do that is through organised social grassroots community building. There does need to be a level of leadership at the national level, so there could be a kind of there's a group called Time to Assemble, where basically people form neighbourhood assemblies. They then go to a national assembly later on, and they're calling for an abolition of the House of Lords and replacing it with the House of the People. So it's that kind of people power, I think. Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm still a bit confused about how we get there. And the nuts and bolts daily life of how to get there.
Yeah, no,
it's still a bit murky. Yeah. Do people in the public have any questions? Ask us questions. Ask Jan questions about his book. Come here and talk to the microphone.
In an ideal world, what sort of a hierarchy would you have in that utopia?
Okay, in an ideal world, I mean, and it doesn't have to be a utopia, it can be something that we see in our lifetimes. In an ideal world, I think that we have people in power for a maximum of 1 or 2 years, and then they have to swap to someone else. And it has to be diverse, it has to incorporate from all sections of society. So not just people who went to Oxford and Cambridge, but people who, I think that.
Well, they do a similar thing. I was part of a national thing called Altogether Better, and it's all to do with health and social care. And they had a similar thing. So there's lots of service users, carers, but also directors of social services, this person and that person with a pot of money.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic.
And did it work?
idea.
It worked.
Worked really well.
Yeah, nice.
And everybody got back together.
Yeah.
Because you're just there as a person. You're not there as, the head of this or the,
Yeah, definitely.
It was good. So that sort of model would work.
Yeah. There's a political party in Catalonia, in Spain, and they have rotations. They have I don't know how many members in the Catalan parliament they have. And every 2 years you just go back to your job, to your life. So there's no career politicians. And they're somehow always have to be attentive to a big assembly that they're that's informing them about what kind of the members want to decide. But I think the most important bit is none of them become career politicians. If you're a journalist, you go back to being a journalist. If you're a plumber, you go back to being a plumber. And then someone else. And sometimes they did a great job, and the person who comes next is not as good. It's happened to me, but I'm just for that rotation. I think they're worthy of support.
I mean, when I was a lad, when I was 18, I went to work. It was the only way out of my council estate to get abroad. The only thing you could do was either join the army or go on a kibbutz. So I went on a kibbutz. And basically, I worked in these factories, and basically, the factories would, one day you'd be sweeping the floor, and then the next day you'd be in the office ringing people. So no one got used to that power structure of thinking, I'm in charge, this is my lieutenant, this is my sergeant, you do what I say, you do what I say. No one had that time to kind of, naturally power corrupts, okay, naturally it does. And obviously without the time to do that, and you become humble, you become kinder, because you know what it's like. I used to do night shifts in an orange factory, and basically you would literally fall asleep on the job, and someone would come up and nudge you, and because you knew the tiring nature of the work, when you became part of the management structure, you didn't lose that compassion, and you had ethics about it. It's like you were ethical, because you thought, I know how that felt, so I'm not going to let that person go through it without helping them out a bit. So it was that kind of give and take.
And you know what I'm thinking, think about it, the government couldn't even argue against that. Because if you think about jury service, they want us all to do jury service. So no matter who you are, you're down on the electoral rolls, and it will be your duty, and they'll put you in jail if you don't do it.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, structure's already in place, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There are examples of it already in place, you're right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Other questions? Oh,
Should I go back?
please. No, yeah, make it talk to this.
Thank you for introducing the book. I would like to ask about the technocracy and smartphones. What do you have against both of these? Thank you.
I mean, the technocracy, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that I'm against AI machines that are going to help people in the NHS survive a serious illness. By technocracy, the thing I'm talking about is people in Europe or people in the UN who aren't really invested in their positions to help people. They're invested in their positions to make more money and just to get richer. So if you look at Silicon Valley, the people in Silicon Valley, where do they send their kids to school? What do they do about smartphones? I'll tell you what they do. In Silicon Valley, they don't give their kids smartphones and they send them to Waldorf schools, which are schools where everything's made out of wood and there's no technology, because they know the danger of the algorithms affecting our teenagers. My daughter is 12. She had a smartphone when she was 11 years old. Against my better judgment, it was my partner. She said, well, give her a smartphone on her 11th birthday because everyone else is getting one. You can go to a group called Smartphone Free Kids, and if all the parents in year 7 agree that their kids aren't going to get a smartphone, there's no problem, because there's no one saying, oh, Josie's got a smartphone, they haven't, because the parents have already agreed not to give them one until they're released. I wouldn't give my daughter a smartphone until she's 26, let alone 14 in Australia where they're banning them, because I think the algorithms that the kids are given are evil. And I will say that, I think they're evil, because they're ratcheting up the capitalist system. They're getting girls to wear eyelashes, wear makeup, and become influenced by social influencers in LA. So they have no investment in their local community, because all they're thinking about is individualism, when we need to be thinking about collectivism. Collectivism is the way ahead for us. Sorry to get a bit cross about that question.
More questions?
I wanted to ask if you thought party politics actually works though, because it sounds slightly contradictory, if you like, saying, oh, the Green Party and your party, and then we have to do a revolution at the same time. How?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if you, the reason that I moved away from direct action and into the more political sphere was because I just thought it had more effect with more people. So the reason I'm excited by your party and the Greens is because there's so many people involved, and I just think it's an opportunity for us to put our ideas into practice. So for example, with your party, they're asking people from Just Stop Oil to help with the workshops when they go up and down the country, because they know it's something that works. You know, when people get into little groups and they start talking about what's up for them in their community, people start to cooperate and they want to do more. In terms of the bigger picture, you mentioned revolution. Obviously, we're not going to have a global revolution. You know, that's not going to happen. But what we can do, not tomorrow, no, not well, yeah. But that's not to say that we can't have revolutionary thinking and revolutionary ideas and change things. One of the campaigns I'm most proud of was when we did the thing called Everybody Eats. And we went to Hastings, we went to a food bank in Hastings, Sainsbury's in Hastings. We took the food out of the donation boxes and we took it directly to the food bank because it had been sitting there for months with no one touching it, because Sainsbury's couldn't be asked to sort out any distribution. We took it to the food bank. The food bank manager then went on the national press and he said, these people are angels because we'd run out of food and 1,000 people would have been affected in not having food that week. So these kind of initiatives can happen, and then people start to realise, well, hold on a minute, maybe we should be doing more to sort out the distribution of it. So it's not a them and us, it's more a kind of a solution solving thing. You know, what can you do to solve problems? What's your role? You know, how do you feel you can play a role? That's the thing, I think.
I just think that depending on a politician to do that makes no sense. It hasn't worked so far. So
Yeah, it's very dispiriting.
Green Party and your party are still politicians, aren't they?
They are politicians. Jeremy Corbyn's still a politician, and Sarah Sultana's a politician, and yeah, I mean, obviously you are dealing still with the political class. However, in terms of how we change that, I think the effective way is just to push forward, even if it's not quite up the hill. At least we're going kind of in the right direction. But I do take on your point. It's true. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's very dispiriting when you look at. You know, I used to leaflet for meetings, and I'd go out leafleting all week, get rid of 5,000 leaflets, and then one person would turn up at the meeting. You know, but you go forward. You crack on and see if you can get 2 people next time, or 3 or 4. So every little bit does go towards the bigger picture, which is, like I say, a fairer and a more climate socially just world, but also a just world for all of us, you know, feeling the brunt of things at the moment.
Hi everybody, my name's Nikki. I think one of the things I'm most worried about at the moment is that we might well have a reform government after the next election. And people are beginning to worry about how we're going to defend our institutions and democracy against a proto-fascist government, or a government with very strong fascist influences behind it and wannabe fascist influences. And I've heard talk this week for the first time that we need to have a written constitution, and that a lot of the freedoms and rights that we've been able to take for granted actually are not secure, and that we need to fix them and make them armour them against attack by a particular group. So what do you think we should do to defend ourselves, to get ready now to defend our institutions against a reform government potentially in 3 years' time?
Well, yeah. So I'll answer that in two parts. So firstly, I think in terms of reform, I think if you look nationally at the figures, 70% of people in the UK support refugees being here. We're nice people in the UK. We're nice people. We're friendly people. Benjamin Zephaniah, the noted vegan, you know, he said that, you know, it's strange how when you come to this country, he came as a Windrush person back in the day, and he said it's strange when you come to this country and then suddenly you start shutting down the barriers as well, and you as a black person start saying, no, I don't really want any more black people coming in the country. And he said, that's really odd, it doesn't stack up for me. And as a prisoner himself, Benjamin Zephaniah, noted vegan, you know, it was important that he was anti-prison, obviously. But anyway, back to the question. The ID cards that Starmer's trying to bring in are equally as insidious as what we're facing from Farage, you could say. But I certainly agree with you. The reform agenda is nasty, isn't it? Essentially, it's a nasty agenda. It's not really built on any sort of sound foundation of social kindness. You know, it's to do with competition. It's to do with. I mean, Nigel Farage has a German wife. I bet that, you know, if it comes to it that he becomes Prime Minister, I'm sure there's so many skeletons in his closet that, you know, who knows. Yeah, I mean, in terms of how we counter that, I suppose it's going to be up to Zach Polanski, Jeremy Corbyn, Sarah Sultana, your party. Labour and Tories seem to be dead in the water. You know, the two-party political system seems to have maybe had its day. Who knows? I think it's more important what we do locally, to be honest. I mean, I've given up. I haven't given up, but I'm very disillusioned with the national political system and have been since I was about 18. You know, I mean, I kind of when I was 18, 19, I was an anarchist, and I was on anarchist protest camps just because I didn't believe in authority. I don't think we need people telling us what to do. So ideally, we would all live in smaller communities and get by that way. However, realistically, in the current state we're in, the only thing that's going to stop Farage is people waking up to what he's trying to do, you know, and what he's trying to say. And I don't think Britain will go for a Farage government personally, but we'll see.
He's ahead now.
He is ahead now, but there's 2029 the election, so we've got a few years to go yet. But yeah, it's a good question. I understand what you're saying.
Nobody thought Trump was going to get in once, let alone twice.
Yeah, that's true.
We took 3 years to defend our institutions.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I take your point. I do take your point. All I can say is that I'm on the other side trying to make a difference that way, and, you know, that's all we can do, really. You know, but I don't agree in saying, oh, I hope things will get better. I mean, I agree in saying that let's make things get better ourselves and not have to be told what to do or how to act in the political arena. The whole new idea of politics is anti-politics. We don't want politics anymore. We don't want politicians.
Farage is going to give us politics.
Well,
whether we like it or not. If he gets in.
If he does get in,
there's
yeah.
a serious
Well, let's stop him getting in.
He's going to get in. How do we do that? What do you
Well, I mean, you have to mobilise, obviously. You have to mobilise people, which is where groups like Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion have proved that they can mobilise. I mean, no one was talking about insulation before Insulate Britain. No one stopped the new oil and gas licences apart from Just Stop Oil. We've kept 4.5 billion barrels of oil in the earth where it should be. You know, we should not be extracting oil at this point in time. We should be investing more in wind, more in solar, and more, most importantly, more in energy conservation and energy reduction. Okay, those are the important things. Not having people flying every single, business class to. The majority of people who take flights are the business class. And they're multi-flyers, and they even spend the weekend in the Cayman Islands. You know, at this point in time, that is disgusting, and it should not really be allowed.
Cool. Do you wanna summarize?
Yeah, I mean,
what would you like people to leave this with? You know,
I just want the takeaway from this. I would hope would be just carry on what you're doing. I mean, build community resilience. He says, like the tower falling down. Build community resilience. Get involved in as many local projects as you can. Help your brother, help your sister, and just like basically don't give up. You know, I mean, just carry on doing what we're doing, and do a little bit. There's an activist I know. He's called Batesy. He once said to me, "Everyone's on a journey." Okay, in activism, everyone's on a journey. You've got people at one end of the scale who'll give up their jobs, they'll give up their freedom, give up their family. And then you've got people down the way a bit, and they'll give up a day a week, and they'll help with supporting a prisoner who's been arrested for an action involving climate. So everyone can do a little bit along the way. And Batesy always used to say, once you've done that little bit, try doing a little bit more. You know, it's that attitude, that fact that, and it's so nice to be involved with community. I've had my best times on protest camps in woods in the UK, you know, where I've met ex-military, homeless people, gypsies, travellers, conservatives, people who own golf clubs. You know, you get all manner of people on protest camps. It's not your crusties with a dog. It's every sort of people. People who tunnelled under HS2 in Euston in London. They were two landed gentry, two 18-year-olds from the landed gentry. There was a drug dealer, admittedly. There was also a lecturer. There was a guy, Swampy, people remember Swampy, Daniel Hooper. He was there with his son. You know, and they tunnelled, Larch was there, who was another well-known activist. They tunnelled under the Euston station, and they stayed there for around an inordinate amount of time, just to show how Boris Johnson's vainglorious scheme was totally illogical and a waste of money, waste of our money. You know, HS2 is our money. That's something that started at £62 billion and is now gone up to about £200 billion, and it's not going to benefit us. It's going to benefit people who can afford to pay. When I did the M11 campaign in 1990, the whole idea of the M11 link road in East London between Leytonstone and Wanstead was to shave off 8 minutes commuter time for people who could afford to drive into the city. They ruined a whole community in Leytonstone. They took down a row of houses, Spinnington Road, they took down a row of houses, Fairlock Road. They also cut down the Wanstead Common Oak, which is one of the loveliest oak trees you could see in Britain. They cut that down. That used to be delivered to by the post office when we sat in that tree for about 2 months. The postman used to deliver letters to that tree. It was that famous, you know, and they took it down. They just cut it down just to make that 8 minutes journey time easier for commuters. Okay, I'll finish on that note, shall I?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, James.